We have got two great guests in studio here this morning. We're talking about Proposition 1 in the city, and it is a big vote changing the way the government could be handled here in the city of Shelton. From a current commission position standpoint there, we have three commissioners up there to a council manager form of government. I have two great guests in studio to talk about the pros and cons about this. Happy to welcome in. We will say hello to Gary Cronce and John Tarrent. Morning, guys.
Morning.
Morning, Jeff.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for asking.
Glad to be here.
So this is not any sort of like formal debate about anything. We're just a group of guys here talking about Prop 1 here, but I'll give you each an opportunity to kind of tell me why you are either in favor of this thing or not in favor, and then I've got some questions for both of you. John, let's start with you.
Okay, well, you know me, former mayor. I've been a political junkie all my life. This past summer, I watched, obviously, I think Gary knows this, I pay attention to what's going on with the community and the city. Several citizens came forward with a proposition to change the form of government in Shelton. That went to the commission. The commission at first said, no, we don't think it's a time for this. We think we're doing a great job with the form of government we have. Obviously, you've already spoken to the fact of what we'd be switching to by law. Under state law, we would end up with a 7-member council form. Okay, you're probably asking, why do I support it? I support the process. I also support the form. It's interesting that on November 7th, people will have an opportunity to choose between keeping the commission form and moving to a council form. I like the council form. I also like the form that it has in the sense that it lets council members choose the mayor from amongst themselves for 2 years. My model is Lacey. Worked with folks over there a lot of the time when I was mayor. I think it has a lot to offer. It also expands the opportunity for citizens to participate in government. And quite frankly, I think if the voters decide to go to a council forum, going at an at-large basis, in other words, allowing people throughout the city to choose to run for a particular position, would be a great thing to do rather than doing it by districts. That said, I also was mayor for 12 years under a commission form. I think the commission form worked well for us. I think, however, it's time for the citizens of Shelton to have an opportunity to go with a council form. Shelton was the last city to adopt it, and that happened on November 7th, 1944. Our election is November 7th, 2017. Why have other cities dropped it? Partly due to the fact, I think, that it's under public disclosure laws and, quite frankly, transparency, and just the fact of getting more people involved. I would like to see more people making decisions in the city of Shelton. I think that Open Public Meeting Act is a great thing. These folks, Gary and company, can't, other than say hi, hello, how are you, can't say anything to somebody else on the council or the commission without being in a position where they have a meeting. I think even if we go to a council forum that various committees that would be formed, for example, finance, public works, or whatever, which would have commissioners on it, should be open to the public as well. I support this primarily because citizens came forward and said we wanted it first after the fact that the current commission said, no, I don't think it's time, even though they did go ahead to place it on the ballot after the citizens came forward with a petition. The fact that a few people signed it and got enough to get it on the ballot is great. Now it's up to the public, but I think it's a good form of government to switch to.
And Gary, what say you on this? We've heard the statements and read the letter in the journal, and what do you got to say about your side of this issue?
Well, what I want to do is start to just restate my letter. It's just, it's what do you call a blanket statement about how I feel. I think it's a good representation. Over the next few days, the citizens will be asked, and the ballots are already mailed out, and they'll be asked to vote on this Proposition 1. Okay. This proposition would replace our existing 3-person commission with a 7-person council. This is not a good idea, and I would highly recommend that you vote no on Proposition 1. I'm concerned that a 7-person council will cost the city more money, be less efficient, and really undermine the success the city is currently experiencing. 2 years ago, as we all know, Shelton was on the edge of bankruptcy. But today we have reduced our $50 million debt to $44 million. And we went from building 2 homes a year for many years to over 20 homes per year. We used to borrow millions of dollars to build our infrastructure, which the citizens are now paying through very high sewer rates. But now we are building our sewer basins with almost 100% grant money. This 7-person council, if it passes, my elected position, as John has just stated, will be eliminated. And I will be gone. Your right, the citizens' right to choose a new mayor, will be taken from them. Because this new 7-person council will pick one for you. And that's my prepared statement, and that's how this works. And so to add on to that is this did not come from the Chamber of Commerce. This did not come from any established group. This came from a group of citizens who hate me. This came from a group of citizens that for the past 2 years have come to our city commission meetings and degraded me, insulted me, and we, as commissioners, allow that 3-minute conversation, and we do not answer back. We do not return insult for insult. We respect anyone's right to come and speak. And everyone in the city, all citizens, have a right to come to every single meeting and speak for 3 minutes on whatever they want to. These people that gathered these signatures have continually harassed us, and they are against the policies which this commission has established and has been successful. The city is moving in the right direction. And right now, I guess my question for past Mayor Tarrent, respectfully, is if this was such a good thing, and he saw how good it was with Lacey, why when he was mayor and commissioner for 12 years, he didn't put it in place? I think a lot of people have asked me that question. And so I'll leave it at there, and I'll answer any other questions you might have, Jeff.
Well, that brings up, that is one of the things I do want to talk about. But first, John, I do want to go back to something that Gary did mention, and going from a 3-person commission to a 7-person council would more than double what maybe people think the bureaucratic mess of government. There's already, as we see at the city commission meetings, already the city's already deep in debt. Wouldn't this add to that by adding more people? A current commission that I think we all can agree at times doesn't necessarily get along on every issue. Wouldn't this just double the amount of bureaucracy, more than double the amount of government?
Well, can I make one comment before I respond to that?
Sure.
First of all, I was one of those people that signed a petition. I don't hate Gary. I hope that folks that want that change aren't in that position. If he feels that way, I'm sorry. With respect to increasing the size from 3 to 7, those cities that I've looked at, first of all, what I've been hit with is questions about, gee, John, if we go to this, it's going to cost 7 times $25,000 plus medical benefits. No, it won't. It's up to the current commission, and it's the government forum wants to switch over to it, if it should pass, to create a salary structure that's more like what others have. Lacey, for example, there's, in a fairly good-sized city, $700 a month. I don't believe they get medical benefits. Quite frankly, I think those are some changes that would happen. It would mean less money for folks that are not necessarily, because these folks would be grandfathered in for the remaining term. Gary for 2 years, Kathy for 2 years, and whoever gets elected for this next term probably would get 4 years, but that's an attorney issue, subject to how long it takes them to put it in. I think that having committee structure can work well. Yeah, it's going to add some more time in there. I like to see the discussion. Quite often I've gone to commission meeting or seen it, and I watch it on your folks' radio, seeing the discussions that go on. I'm not sure that those meetings right now are all that dialogue back and forth between staff and commission. I think it's an opportunity. Shelton has had basically a council forum since 1984 when it hired its first city administrator. The only difference here is you're going to add 5 more citizens who want to participate in what their future is in the community. It's basically a hybrid form of a council forum already, with the commission, with basically Gary's position as mayor. He's one of 3 votes, equal votes. And quite frankly, that's the way it would be under a council forum. The only difference would be, instead of having the commissioner of finance serving as mayor pro tem, you'd have a mayor and a mayor pro tem that would be chosen amongst the commissioners. Yes, elected people will elect council members, and the council members would choose a mayor for 2 years. Quite frankly, I don't have a problem with that. There's always recall if people get bent out of shape over stuff, but I don't believe that's necessary.
Gary, do you think it's a good thing to have these additional voices? I know it's tough from all that I hear from different organizations that have a 3-person setup here, that you guys just can't get a chance until the meeting to talk about the issues. And if you were able to expand that, the quorum restrictions would kind of go away a little bit more.
Yeah, I'll answer that. As I said before, the citizens, good comments, John.
Thank you.
As I said before, every citizen has an opportunity to come to every single commission meeting and voice their opinion. And I personally take every one of them serious. I think a lot of the reason for this move to the 7-person thing is because people haven't gotten their way. That this commission, I think John might have said something about, or you might have said something about that we don't always agree on things. Well, I went back, and this city commission concurs with over 95% of our decisions that we have to make. And we disagree on major issues because we have a major problem when it comes to money. Like I said, we had been borrowing low-interest loans for so long that it was a habit. We were addicted to low-interest loans. And when I became mayor, I fought to stop that, and my hands were pretty much tied for the first 4 years. But in the past 2 years, understand, we took the debt that was hurling towards 60, 70, whatever million, if all of the things that the people, and I'm talking about the people who sent out the petitions, the people that gathered the signatures, the people that come to our meetings, I'm not talking about the people who signed the petition.
Thanks, Gary.
I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about the people that actually pushed this. If they had gotten all the things that they wanted, we'd be who knows how many millions of dollars we'd be in debt. And the past 2 years, we pulled the $50 million debt back to $44 million, while still getting grant dollars to pay for our basins by 100%. This translates to the citizens not getting a sewer increase in their bill. Our bills are amongst the highest, as you know. We've been through these situations, and this came from a 3-person commission, okay? When you have 7 people, you got 7 more ideas, 7 more pet projects, 7 more we want to do this one. And I'm glad that this commission stepped in and said the time to borrow money has stopped. We're going to pull our way out of debt, but we cannot have every single rose-colored thing. Last night I woke up and I thought about this: people not having their right to have their opinions on the commission. Okay, so what I did is I made a little list. The city already has hundreds of councilmen. Okay, through our non-profits and through our task force, okay, which we have an intimate relationship with. So any citizen, concerned citizen that wants to be closer involved with our city commission, they can join any one of these groups at any time. And just to name a few: Downtown Merchants, Chamber, Forest Festival, Habitat for Humanity, Turning Point, EDC, Metropolitan Park District, Library, Love Inc., Adopt a Pet, Neighborhood Block Watch Groups, the Senior Center, Kiwanis. I'm a big fan of Kiwanis. They can join any one of these groups, the citizens, and they can have a personal voice in to our commission. And we, just because we don't do what everybody wants us to do, doesn't mean we haven't heard their voice. United Way, Historical Society. How about the Arts Commission, Poverty Task Force, Housing Coalition, Museum, the Cemetery Board, Rotary? For lack of wasting all your time,
Sure.
I think we got the idea that
Yeah.
people have a personal involvement already. But the problem is that when you don't do what somebody wants to do, that's where the rub comes
Let me
in.
ask you this one,
Can I
Gary.
respond to that?
Well, one second, John. Let me ask you this, Gary. When we get down to the bottom of this, and I'm thinking back to your statement that you made, Prop 1, do you feel that Prop 1 is a detriment to the city of Shelton the way it's moving forward? Or, as I've heard in the community as well from folks, is it more about you keeping your title as elected mayor and moving from a 1/3 amount of power to a potential 1/7?
Absolutely. This has never been about me. This has always been about the citizens of Shelton. And I have proven that good leadership will save the city money, and that it has been my personal involvement. I may be here 2 years. I serve at the pleasure of the citizens. They can vote me in or out. But this is a backhanded way to undermine the successes that we have accomplished. The people who put the petition out have verbally said they want to do it so they can get reinstated back on the commission the voters have just voted out. And I'm not against anybody winning an election. In fact, we are all winning elections, and the citizens have a right to vote those people in. Here's my successes. It's obvious that paying for grants with 100% grant money is much better than borrowing money to do them. And I fought hard to get this through the Sewer Funding Coalition. It made our DIP this year accomplish what we wanted. We basically could cut rates this year and still be on track with reserves and everything. We could cut rates up to 11% and never feel a thing. Now, are we going to? Maybe. We have to decide that. That'll be, I think, at our next commission meeting. And we will discuss it, and the commission will concur with whatever we feel is best. But I fought hard to lower these sewer rates. It's hard for me to walk away and say, now that I fought hard and brought back all this grant money, that we are going to raise the sewer rates. So I think it's the citizens. I have no problem with getting voted out of office, but this is an underhanded way to do it with people that disagree with policies that have been successful for the citizens of Shelton.
John, Gary brought up a good point, and it kind of leads me to my next one. I talk with a lot of folks here on the air, as you know, and oftentimes they come to me and they talk to me about the nonprofits and the volunteerism and how it's hard to find volunteers and it's hard to get people to come out to these groups that Gary mentioned. How do you expect, and forgive me if this is wrong, but when I see the crowd in the council, I get the sense that
Crowd, explain that.
the crowd, the people that are watching, that are people that are commenting, the numbers there are often very low. There's often very few people there to make comment, public comment, as that's their right to do. How do you expect or get everybody who's got so many other things going on in their life to be able to add this onto the thing? Plus then, oh, by the way, when it comes to compensation, and I get civic duty, but money talks, and you're only going to be able to pay a couple $100.
Depending on the process.
Depending on the process. How are you going to expect to fill those seats? And would it just be the case of the people who are in watching the city commission meetings now, would they just move from watching to being on the council and then talking to nobody?
I think, first of all, let me comment on a couple things. And Gary's right. I mean, we have a lot of groups in the community. I look at that as what makes this community strong is volunteerism in those groups.
Absolutely.
However, to say you're participating in local government because you're a Kiwanian or a Rotarian or you're on the EDC board or whatever it happens to be, that doesn't put you in a position where you've been elected to make decisions on behalf of the citizens. I think that it's wonderful that we have all the volunteer groups. Volunteerism is a tough thing. If you look around at membership of a lot of groups, yes, you're right, Jeff, it is difficult getting people to participate. I watched the League of Women Voters presentation that City factually made before the League on the Proposition 1. They did a good job. The folks at the League asked some good questions. That question was one, so how do you fill those positions if you go from 3 to 7? I think they will be filled. Gary's concerned, it almost sounds like there's a hysteria in the sense that people that particularly don't like him are going to run and try and run him out. I don't look at it that way. People signed petitions. I signed it because primarily, I used to teach government. I think people ought to have a choice. And if people go to the polls on the 7th of November, and again, I would encourage everybody to vote and vote all the time. It's important. I taught government for years. You only get what you get when you participate, either in starting out as a voter or then volunteering like I did or actually running for office like I did. But ultimately, it's up to the people. If they don't want this form of government that changed, well, that's fine. But quite frankly, we're already there. The only difference is 3 versus 7. Will it cost more? I don't believe so in the long run. A couple comments. Yeah, 12 years as mayor. We did a lot for the community. One of the problems we were faced with was infrastructure, which Gary obviously inherited some of those issues too with all of our sewer and water problems. We may very well have been in moratorium had we not made some of the improvements we had. We had some phenomenal grants that we managed to get from the feds, some of it which they took away from us before we even got the thing finished with respect to the sewer plant upgrades. But I encourage citizens to run. It's not about me or Gary. It's about the citizens choosing what they think is going to be best for Shelton. To get rid of the commission form of government, yeah, I have history there. I like the commission form of government. Don't have a problem with it, but I also like greater participation. I think this is an opportunity, seeing as though a group of folks who I won't say one way or the other, whether they hated somebody or wanted somebody out, they simply wanted to put it before the public. Let the public decide. Don't go out and scare people by telling them, well, they're going to vote me out of office, or we're going to get a bunch of those folks that didn't like what we're doing running things for you. Well, it's all about people voting. And that's what I think. And I think that there won't be a problem getting people to fill those positions. Will there be a transition issue? Yes.
Gary asked this question too. Hold on, Gary.
Go ahead.
He asked this question, and I had it on my list here too, but you're the mayor for 12 years. Why didn't you go through with this earlier?
With what?
Moving to a council.
Yeah, that's a good question. Because I think, quite frankly, it worked. I think one of the responses that, and I don't have a problem with it working now. I think that people are brought it forward, let them decide. I think the councilmatic form is great. The fact that Shelton was the last one to go, or is to be considered going, that's up to the citizens. I will say this: the two cities that went last primarily went, I think, because of two things. One was maybe the open meeting law and a few things related to that, but more than anything else was dysfunction. I think Aberdeen, with respect to, not Aberdeen, pardon me, but Raymond with respect to when they went out, there was some dysfunction there. Wenatchee, probably similar things. But a lot of it was they were already doing councilmatic things because the bulk of those cities already had the equivalent of a council manager form, where they had somebody acting as mayor appointed amongst the group, but they also had hired a manager. In the case of Shelton, Shelton's had a manager since 1984. So we've really been running that way all along. Gary can't hire or fire anybody. Nobody can on the commission. The only position that ever really had any input, and that got changed, was respect to hiring the police chief. And that one actually managed to get changed a few years ago, where the city administrator, in fact, does the actual hiring, even though in the case of the one position that they do have control over is the city administrator.
I can tell John was the next school teacher because the cat can just talk on for hours.
Gary, let me ask you this.
Well, let me hit one quick thing. He said that I'm talking about getting voted out of office. No, I have no problem with getting voted out of office. What I have a problem with is having my position eliminated without the people, the citizens, having the ability to vote for their mayor.
They have a choice, Gary.
People on this one. But if the 7-person happens, they will not have a right to vote for their mayor. And people like their mayor. Some people do. You had a question, Jeff?
Yeah, well, I was going to actually ask you about that. So if this goes through and we move to the council format there, you'll be up for re-election next year.
No, 2 years.
2 years. Yeah. Are you going to continue on if it goes through as a council member?
My hair is getting gray. My head is getting bald. And, I have no idea. At this moment, I serve at the pleasure of these citizens. It's been an honor and privilege, and it was exciting to be involved with getting this city at least out of bankruptcy. And we're on a plateau. I am afraid of losing that success. And it's not me, it's this commission who concurs with 95% of what we discuss. So am I going to run again? I'll let you know about 30 days before the election or whatever. So this is not my lifetime career. I had something I went for, and we accomplished what we went for. I fulfilled my campaign promises, and I will continue to do them. But the 7-person thing, look close at who's pushing it. Okay, there's a lot of good people that think it would be a better way to go, and I'm not degrading or insulting any of those. I'm only saying it came from a group of people that comes to our commission meetings. Hey, John, talking about hysteria, just watch our tapes and watch what that group is saying and accusing me of every single meeting. And you know what? They got a right to do it, and I smile and say thank you.
We're running close to time here. We'll probably go over, but that's okay. We'll probably go into the news here.
Is there a closure statement here?
We'll get there here in 1 second here. I have another question for you, John, and it could be a wording issue. I want to make sure I have it right here. I wrote it out here. It could be, as I said, a wording issue, but will this give more power to the unelected city manager, who is now the chief executive officer and that I got that from the explanatory statement on the ballot. I mean, it's a council manager form, not a commission manager form that we have now. Are you concerned about that? Is that
No,
something that's going to happen?
I'm not. Primarily because if you look at what Shelton has had with the commission form, we've had a city manager, city administrator since 1984. There was actually, Shelton's a code city, so, codified, it's in there. The commission at the time went ahead and decided that they needed to have a professional manager, and they've had one ever since. They are policymakers. They will continue to be policymakers as council members, or if citizens choose, commissioners. I would like to make a comment, though, about the debt issue. There is a lot of finance going on with city. Yes, we borrowed a lot of money, but we also had to do it because we were trying to avoid moratorium and provide for upgrades in the system. It wasn't done to put people in hock. Gary bounces around a bunch of numbers, and he's been doing it for a long time. The numbers float. There's long-term debt. Yes, Shelton's always had long-term debt. I think there are times probably when it didn't have much because of cost of doing things. That isn't what this is about. I think that what we're about today is to decide whether they want to change the form of government. Let's not talk about, yes, there have been some successes. We've all had successes. We've all had failures. I know when I was on the commission, there were times when I could walk away from a meeting or I was upset with a vote. Did that change things for me about wanting to be mayor and serve the citizens? No. Went right on doing it. Were there citizens that came and brought their angst to the commission? Yes. What role was the city commission's, if you will, administrator? That person's job was to do what the commission, or in the case of the council, wishes them to do through policy. That's with the 7 folks or 3 folks, regardless of which way. If it stays the way it is or goes to a 7, it's up to those elected folks through policy to direct their administrator and the folks that work under him what to do, or her.
All right, Gary, let's have our closing statements here. Give me your
Sure.
last pitch.
I will, and just to John talks about my numbers floating around as if there's a character flaw here.
I didn't say that.
You said my numbers float around.
Well, I did.
Okay, you did. And here's the deal, is every number I've ever given, I got from the existing staff. Every number. And so when they say tell them we're $50 million in debt, but if these 2 big water tanks pass, we will be approximately $60 million in debt. I got that from staff. So every number I got, I don't make these things up. These are numbers I got from staff, and most of it was from our past staff. But let me do my closing statement, okay? It's been a pleasure to serve the citizens of Shelton as your mayor. I love being mayor, and it's an opportunity to personally connect with the citizens, and here's my number one goal I had, is to attempt to lower their sewer rate. We are close to this year being able to do that because we are one of the highest in the state. And I'm not blaming John Tarrent for the $50 million in debt. He did what he had to do, and we got great infrastructure for it. He made a decision. We
made a decision.
Yeah, and it was not that commission's fault that one of the biggest recessions we've ever seen hit us, and we are still crawling out of. So personally, between John Tarrant and I, we are camping buddies, okay? But when we have these issues, then a spirited debate is what it's all about, and I have no problem with that. So over the next few days, we're going to have to decide what to do. I am going to say that this proposition of the 7-person is not a good idea for the citizens of Shelton, because I'm concerned that the 7-person will cost more money, and just salary isn't it. It's staff time. It's retreats. It's seminars, educational seminars. It's travel mileage. It's meals. It's a whole lot more than a salary, okay? And basically, 2 years ago, we were on the edge of bankruptcy, and today we have reduced our $50 million debt to $44 million. And today we are funding our grants, our sewer projects at the moment with almost 100% grant money. And I am continuing to fight and continue to negotiate with our governor and Maya Bellin, the head of the Department of Ecology, over every basin one at a time. And it is my goal to pay for all of them with grant money, 100%. And in this one, I think we're getting close to accomplishing it. That's a success. Okay? If the 7-person council passes, my elected position as mayor, it will be eliminated, and I will be gone. and the right of the citizens to pick a mayor, like I like him, I want to pick him, that will be taken from them.
How do you figure you're not to interrupt?
This
but I
no,
can't-
one second,
Yes.
sir. Can I want to just finish
Go
my
ahead.
statement, and you'd be more than happy to be able to have time.
You
Okay.
made it an hour, Jeff.
Okay.
May.
My position be eliminated. Okay. And the citizens' right to pick a mayor, that will be taken from them. They won't have that right anymore because a new mayor will be elected every 2 years. It'll be appointed to them. So the 7-person committee says, we deem this as a good mayor for you, the citizens. Thank you. And so, John, you have all the time you want to rebut any of this.
Final
How's it-
statement, John?
Well, it goes back to, I think, the issue of I think people have a choice, Jeff. I don't believe in scare tactics. I can appreciate the fact that when I was mayor, a lot of other mayors, we sat down and created a mayor's council. Now, obviously, Gary's gone another step further. He's taken it and gone after more money. Did I work with a recession? Yes. Was Shelton growing at that time? Not much, because everybody else was suffering. My final statement really is the citizens have an opportunity to look at a change of government. If they like what's going on right now, just take it for what it is. Lots of good things going on, but there also is an opportunity to have more people involved. I think this is the right time for people to choose to have a councilmatic forum. They already have it. The only difference is size. As far as all of the costs that Gary may be alluding to and the fact that he's going to be no longer mayor, he's going to be a commissioner for another 2 years, regardless of what happens. If it passes, he's still a commissioner. In this case, a council member. If they choose to keep him as mayor, well, I don't know, quite frankly, how that might change. He may stay mayor, but I think he would have just as much option to be chosen as mayor. He's concerned about keeping his position. Well, at this point, it's up to the citizens. I think people have a choice. I honestly don't think in the long run it's going to cost the citizens any more. As far as staff time goes, people have an opportunity, if they're elected to be on a particular committee, to have those committee meetings daytime or nighttime if they choose. The nighttime ones obviously cost staff time. If you choose to have them during the daytime occasionally, it will eliminate maybe the number of people who could come during the day. Ultimately, I think it's, for me, supporting this, it's more people involved in making decisions. Yes, people can volunteer for service groups and do that, but they're not in the hot seat to make decisions. That's the difference for me. I think people ought to have a choice. This is up to the people. If they, on November 7th, they think that this shouldn't happen, then we move on with the commission form and continue to have government, and hopefully good government. There's been lots of good things going on with Shelton City Commission. I don't have a problem with that. I think it's an opportunity for people, however, to decide whether they want to continue or expand the opportunities for more citizens to participate in their local government choices and decisions.
Well, the citizens have the choice now in front of them. They can make those decisions and put their ballots back into the drop boxes before November 7th. Gary Cronce, John Tarrent, thank you guys for being
Hey,
on.
We want to do it every month on different issues.
I think this would be
every month. We'll talk about camping next
I think
time.
this would be a great idea.
Okay.
Very nice.
Thank you,
Thanks for the
Jeff.
opportunity
Thank you,
to be here.
guys.
All
Well,
right.
we're way over time in the Daybreak Show. We're into the Tom Hartman program, but that's fine. It's always good to get the word out there. We'll join the Tom Hartman program in progress after this.